Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we try to cut through the noise and get you truly well informed. Today, we're diving straight into some pretty striking headlines about the job market. You've undoubtedly seen these widespread layoffs making waves in 2025 across, well, it feels like almost every industry. We're talking about over 221,812 jobs eliminated, just in the first few months of this year alone. It's not just a significant number. It feels like a really profound shift. So we're going to unpack the complex forces behind these massive workforce reductions. This isn't just a simple economic downturn, although, yeah, that's definitely part of it. What we're seeing is this fascinating, almost seismic mix of rapid technological shifts, changing corporate strategies, and even geopolitical ripples that seem to be fundamentally reshaping things.
Exactly. And for this deep dive, we've pulled from a really diverse range of sources to try and give you the clearest possible picture. We've looked at economic analyses from places like Forbes, deep academic research, candid discussions happening on platforms like Reddit, and some very specific industry reports. Our mission here really is to cut through all that noise, give you that clear understanding, and crucially, maybe arm you with some ideas on how to navigate this changing landscape.
Okay, so let's unpack this. The numbers are huge, but where exactly are these cuts concentrated? Which sectors are really feeling the heat right now?
Right. Well, what really stands out when you look at the data is that while the sheer number of layoffs is startling, the impact isn't spread evenly at all. Surprisingly, about a third of the layoffs in 2025 actually come from the government sector.
Really? A third?
Yeah, driven by federal workforce reductions. We're
Yeah.
seeing specific agencies like the National Park Service with 1,500 layoffs, the U.S. Geological Survey around 1,000. And even the Bureau of Reclamation cutting 100 to 150 jobs. So it shows it's not just, the usual suspects. It's a deeper recalibration.
That is surprising about the government sector. Is that mainly budget-driven, or are there, deeper structural changes going on at those agencies?
Mostly budget-driven, it seems, but often tied to broader federal policy shifts, aiming for, leaner operations. But then, as you might expect, the tech sector, it definitely holds the, dubious honor of leading in layoffs overall. According to Layoffs Not As Fi, that's a popular tracker for this stuff, over 52,340 tech employees were cut from about 123 companies just this year. April alone saw over 23,400 jobs go.
Goodness. And these are big names, right?
Oh, yeah. High-profile firms like CrowdStrike cutting 500, then you have Meta, Microsoft, Block, Amazon, Google, Tesla. They're all contributing to that number. And moving beyond tech, the retail sector has also been hit extremely hard. They eliminated over 64,000 jobs in just the first 4 months of 2025. That makes it the second hardest hit industry.
64,000.
Yeah. A lot of that is due to significant bankruptcies, like Joann Fabrics, that was 19,000 jobs, Party City with 16,000, Big Lots with 11,000. But many other retailers are also cutting jobs because of wider economic pressures, things like tariffs, for example. So, again, it's systemic.
So it seems even industries we might think of as more stable are feeling this. What about professional services? I think I heard some whispers there, too.
You're absolutely right. Management consulting is also seeing significant cuts. We're talking the big four firms, PwC, KPMG, EY, Deloitte, the global giants. PwC, for instance, laid off 1,500 U.S. workers. That's 2% of their workforce, and it followed 1,800 cuts just last year.
Why there?
The reasons cited are things like low attrition, people weren't leaving voluntarily, and pressure on profit margins, and it doesn't stop there. The automobile industry is another major area feeling this. Companies like Volvo cut 125 jobs at its Charleston plant, GM eliminated 1,695 at its Fairfax assembly plant. Mercedes-Benz has also announced mass layoffs.
And that's tied to...
Largely tied to production pauses and just the general economic uncertainty hitting the broader manufacturing sector. And finally, logistics. That industry is navigating some serious turbulence. UPS, for example, plans to cut 20,000 jobs in 2025.
20,000? That's huge for one company.
It is. And they explicitly cited global trade policy changes and tariffs as a driver. But the wire logistics industry has seen over 3,600 jobs cut just in recent weeks across various firms, DHL's supply chain, Amazon's logistics side, PepsiCo. It really underscores how global policy shifts have these immediate, very tangible effects on local jobs.
Okay, it's definitely clear from those widespread cuts. A single economic tremor just doesn't explain it all. So if it's not just one cause, what are the intertwined forces driving these drastic cuts across so many different areas?
Precisely. It's a truly multifaceted issue. One of the primary drivers, no surprise, is widespread economic uncertainty and some pretty aggressive cost cutting. The general landscape, post-pandemic slowdowns, stubbornly high inflation, global interest rate hikes, all of that is squeezing corporate profitability.
Right.
So companies are streamlining, looking to boost efficiency, preserve cash flow, basically battening down the hatches because the outlook feels murky. They're making calculated moves. And this brings up a really lively debate we saw in our sources, especially online. The question, did rising interest rates cause these layoffs?
Ah, yes. The Fed question.
Exactly. On places like Reddit, you see this constantly. Some folks argue the Federal Reserve was, quote, hyper-reactive with its interest rate hikes, and that directly led to extreme layoffs, especially in tech. The argument is that it forced companies to slash costs to maintain profits after they'd benefited from years of super low interest rates.
Okay, that's one side.
The other side counters that the Fed's actions were necessary, to tame inflation in what they'd call an unsustainable job market, and that companies really should have forecasted these rate rises, given how much debt they took on earlier. There's even one view that the Fed wants to lower wages.
So a real clash of economic philosophies there.
Absolutely. Some say the Fed overreacted, others say it was unavoidable medicine. It's quite divided.
Okay, so beyond that economic debate, what role is technology playing here? Especially with all the buzz around AI. How much of this seismic shift is really driven by AI, and where's its immediate impact?
Yeah, the AI factor is, well, it's becoming undeniably significant. AI and automation are emerging as major job displacers. AI-related layoffs surged. The number is staggering 136% in 2024. And that trend is expected to continue, maybe even accelerate.
136%, wow.
And it's not just simple automation. It indicates a real redefinition of work. We're seeing it hit hard in customer service, marketing, back office operations, lower-level programming, routine IT tasks. But also, AI is replacing human analysts and finance, call center employees, and retail. It's really spreading.
So not just a tech industry thing.
Not at all. It's a transformation across nearly all industries. It demands a pretty radical shift in, core skills for everyone. And then beyond those big economic and tech forces, a lot of cuts just come down to company-specific strategies. Things like mergers, acquisitions, restructuring efforts. They often lead to cuts as companies consolidate departments or get rid of duplicate roles.
Vendor consolidation, yeah.
Right, or firms might restructure just to cut costs, shift their business focus, or simply try to improve efficiency on their own terms. And company performance, profitability, that's always critical, of course. Firms struggling with falling revenues or high costs, sometimes layoffs feel like the last resort for them. We're also seeing significant post-pandemic adjustments still playing out.
How so?
Well, the big shift to remote and hybrid work, plus that accelerated digital transformation during the pandemic, it led some companies to reassess staffing needs. They might be reducing administrative roles or roles where the skills don't quite match the new digital demands.
And this brings up that whole idea of the tech overhiring correction. Lots of sources suggest tech firms kind of misjudged the market, overhired like crazy during the pandemic boom, and now they're overcorrecting to appease shareholders. But there's also skepticism around the corporate talk, like citing low attrition or labeling affected workers low performers. Why is that narrative met with such distrust?
That's a great point. When companies say low attrition is why they need layoffs, it often feels, well, like a smokescreen. Like it's more about protecting profit margins than a real operational need. It sort of implies, hey, people aren't quitting fast enough, so we have to force them out to hit our financial targets, which doesn't sit well.
Right.
And labeling laid-off workers as low performers, that's often seen as just a convenient way to shift blame away from maybe poor strategic planning during the hiring boom. It frames it as an individual performance issue, not a systemic market misjudgment by leadership. It manages perception for investors, maybe, but it really erodes employee trust.
Understandable.
And one final piece. We can't ignore geopolitical tensions. There was a recent sentiment study in India, the Genius Digipol survey. It found 19% of employees there experienced layoffs directly due to global tensions. And a striking 63% of companies were freezing hiring or downsizing because of it.
Wow, that direct of a link.
Yeah, it shows how these big global issues create very real local ripples, impacting jobs far away from the actual conflict zones.
Okay, these are massive shifts with very real consequences. So what does this all mean for individuals facing these changes, for the companies themselves, and I guess for the wider global economy? How do these ripples affect us all?
The ripple effects
It's
are,
profound.
yeah, they're profound. They cut deep at every level. For employees, the immediate hit is that significant psychological and emotional toll. There's the uncertainty, the stress, the anxiety, but also often a loss of self-esteem, identity, sometimes a feeling of betrayal. It can even lead to depression. I saw a comment on one of the Reddit threads we looked at. Someone put it perfectly. It feels like the economy is doing a software update, and a lot of us are getting caught in the reinstall.
Oof. Yeah, that captures it, that uncertainty.
It really does. And this then feeds into real job market challenges. People find it harder to get new jobs, especially if their specific skills are becoming less marketable because of tech changes. It leads to fierce competition, longer stretches of unemployment, especially hitting mid to senior level people hard. And here's a crucial detail from the sources. Remote workers seem to be about 35% more likely to be laid off than people working in the office or hybrid.
That proximity bias, that's fascinating and pretty concerning. How much does that actually impact talent retention and company performance in the long run, beyond just saving money up front?
It's potentially a very misguided strategy, and yes, it absolutely impacts long-term performance. While layoffs give you those immediate cost savings, those short-term gains, they often come at the cost of long-term productivity and innovation. Morale drops among the staff who remain, workloads increase, projects slow down, quality can suffer.
The survivor syndrome.
Exactly, and companies risk losing critical talent and innovation. When you let go of valuable institutional knowledge, skilled employees, especially senior ones, it can really hinder future product development. And it makes it much harder to attract new talent later on when the market picks up. It's like, winning the battle but potentially losing the war for talent down the road.
Right.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, for the tech ecosystem, the global economy, mass layoffs lead to talent migration. Highly skilled workers often move quickly to new roles or even relocate. So you see shifts in tech hubs. Talent might move from, say, Silicon Valley to growing centers like Bangalore, Berlin, or Toronto.
Interesting geographical shifts, too.
Definitely. And this also creates regional economic strain. Mass layoffs in tech-heavy cities boost local unemployment, strain job markets, reduce consumer spending. It can really slow down the local economy. And on a broader scale, there's the potential for increased economic inequality. When high-paying IT jobs disappear, skilled workers might be pushed into lower-paying or less stable roles. That widens the income gap, leads to wage stagnation for some.
And confidence.
Yeah, ultimately, news of mass layoffs, especially from big high-profile companies, it shakes consumer and investor confidence. People get nervous. That impacts spending patterns, slows down big purchases like houses or cars, affects investments across different sectors. It has broad knock-on effects.
Okay, this clearly presents a monumental challenge for everyone involved. So acknowledging all these complex moving parts,
Right.
what concrete steps can individuals and companies take? How do you navigate this, maybe even thrive in this turbulent environment?
Right.
And what does the future of work really look like?
Right, it's about action now. For employees, adaptability isn't just a good idea anymore. It's absolutely essential. Non-negotiable, really. Proactive upskilling and reskilling are critical. Workers really need to focus on acquiring those, quote, automation-proof skills. Think high-demand areas like AI development, cybersecurity, renewable energy. It's actually encouraging that Indian survey found over half, 55% of employees there, are already actively upskilling or getting new certifications. They see the writing on the wall.
So taking initiative.
Exactly. And beyond skills, financial resilience is huge. Building an emergency fund, ideally 6 to 12 months of living expenses, is crucial advice. Considering side hustles can also provide a buffer, diversify income streams. Strategic networking is also vital.
How so?
Using platforms like LinkedIn effectively, yes, but also attending industry events, even virtual ones, proactively reconnecting with former colleagues, building that network before you need it. And mentally, it's about trying to reframe layoffs, not as a personal failure, but maybe as an unexpected opportunity to pivot towards something more stable, or maybe even more fulfilling.
Those are very concrete strategies for individuals. What about the companies themselves? How can they approach this more strategically, more empathetically, to avoid those long-term pitfalls you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, companies need to think longer term. It's about implementing genuinely responsible layoff strategies. That means transparency, empathy, respect, during a really difficult process. They should be offering comprehensive severance packages, extending health benefits, providing robust career transition support, really helping people land on their feet.
Moving beyond just the legal minimums.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And making decisions based on value, not just that proximity bias. Focus on retaining high-performing employees, regardless of whether they're remote or in the office. And use AI smartly to genuinely improve efficiency, not just as an excuse for arbitrary cuts that destroy morale. Fostering trust is paramount. Clear communication, genuine support for the remaining employees. That's essential to rebuild morale. Offer mental health resources, professional development for those who stay.
And what about the bigger picture? Governments, the tech community?
They have a huge role too. There's a pressing need for policies and partnerships. Things like establishing effective workforce transition systems, targeted job training programs, income support for workers displaced by automation. Public-private partnerships are going to be crucial for workforce development, for incentivizing the right kind of training. And this brings up an important point from some sources. The idea that new tech always creates more jobs than it destroys, and that displaced workers can just easily retool. Well, some call that a fallacy, or at least an oversimplification.
So we need to be realistic.
Exactly. Policymakers need to be realistic about the scale and speed of these challenges. Future trends. We'll likely see continued layoffs driven by economic uncertainty, M&A activity, more AI integration, especially for routine tasks, and companies optimizing these hybrid and remote work models. But new roles will emerge: cloud computing, cybersecurity, the gig economy continues to evolve. They'll just demand new, specialized skills. It's very dynamic.
So we've covered the current landscape, the driving forces, the wide-ranging impacts, and what people and organizations can perhaps do. It seems really clear this isn't just a temporary dip, a cyclical adjustment. It feels more like a profound structural shift in global employment, powerfully driven by economic forces, yes, but perhaps most notably by the accelerating integration of AI.
Precisely. And while the challenges are definitely significant, the core takeaway, I think, for both individuals and organizations has to be adaptability, continuous learning. The future workforce really needs to be highly skilled, tech-savvy, and increasingly comfortable working with AI augmented, you could say, to really thrive.
And that leads us to a final provocative thought for you, our listener. The real risk for workers today might not just be losing a job. It might be being left behind in an economy that's increasingly prioritizing automation and these leaner operational models. So the question is, how will you proactively shape your future in this evolving landscape, rather than just waiting for employers or other external forces to dictate it?